tuning in. While you're at it, please subscribe. Feel free to like and comment to tell me what you think. Thank you. So this video here explains 5 years later, after the guy I was dating in my previous video, and that did a lot of abuse to me as well. So this just explains everything when we got back together after he did 5 years. So basically, left, we had a 1-year-old son, and I ended up finding out I was pregnant as well. Of course, like I said, I lost her twin, but then I had her. And then on top of it, he went to prison for 5 years. So it just left just everyone in a bad spot, I guess. And when he came home, 5 years. So I went on ahead and let him be on house incarceration at my home to, spend time with them and to catch up and, just spend time with the children. And plus, he was a big role model to my other children as well, and they loved him too. So he just brought a lot of happiness when he had gotten out. And then on top of it, I was struggling real bad too. I had just fought to get those felonies off my record that year, and just got 20 hours in laundry at a nursing home. On top of it, I worked at McDonald's for a couple of hours, and I was cleaning houses for $50. So he came home right in time. God sent him home right in time to just help me get back on my feet and to better myself. Because when he got house arrest, I actually was flat broke and just struggling, and I was kind of embarrassed. And he was like, you should never be embarrassed. And I also want you guys to know, like, he had a heart of gold, and there is nobody that man wouldn't help. And he loved me with every inch of him. He would never ever let me go without, and he always put me first. The good part of him was always there to lift me up, and he would never ever just say things to just down me, to make me feel less than. No matter how many problems I was going through, he would give me words of encouragement and just kind of say, everything will work out, or don't beat yourself up. You can do things this way. And so, he came around right on the times that he needed to, right when I needed him, or needed a man in general. So, like I said, he came and he brought happiness back into the place, and he brought a lot of things that we needed as well. And so that him being around just make me want to be more powerful and just more responsible, where I then start working harder, getting more hours. And around that time, Fire Sticks had came out, and he ended up learning how to program them because he's like a real electronic geek. So we were making $200 off of those things. And on top of it, he was a really big hustler, and I was a really big hustler. So you put us together, and we were just a power couple, and the children were back happy. We were back healthy. Our financial stabilities went back intact, and we was back to normal. So we even started going to church, and on holidays, and just trying to do a positive thing this time around. To be in nursing, and I had the first opportunity to work in my first assisted living home with residents. So I was happy about that. And when I would get off of work, he would have a full course meal waiting on me. My bath water would be ran, and the children will be in bed, and everything would be just lovely. So everything was going well. And like before, when everything was going well, in the previous before he went to prison for those 5 years, um, it was our close ones and the outside world bringing in problems and stepping into our relationship. And that's until, like I said, the dark side kick in, one negative emotion of manipulation, of him still pointing the finger, well, you did this, and just could never admit to his mistakes, which he were reverting back to his old ways, bringing girls inside my home again, and bringing girls around that he was dealing with, and at the time not being truthful about. And then it went as far as him where he was starting back bringing women back to my home, and only this time he would bring women in my room while I'll be at work. And one time my mother thought one of the girls was his cousin because he tried to convince me that she was gay, and then later I found out he actually got her pregnant. So he was still being disrespectful, bringing women into my home and around me, and me and this girl had even went out together. So these behaviors were creeping back in, and on top of it, I started to see the body language in a lot of women that were close to me as well, where one of my close ones would always come over, and she wouldn't even hug me, but she would run straight to him, hugging him first. And I would be like, why does she do that? And he'd be like, babe, I don't know. Like, and he'd try to brush it off as well. Or another close one of mine was showing him pictures of lingerie that she wore for her husband, which I thought was very kind of disrespectful as well. And it was the more women that came around, the more, we were letting them break us apart again, stand up against him, because at this time I'm just ready to be done with him, because like I said, he's back cheating, and he starts where things start to fall apart, where like I said, he felt like I called on my mother too much, which I did, because every time he would lose his head or, try to manipulate the story or couldn't control his actions, I would call on my mother, and my mother has always just been to my rescue all the years that I dealt with him for those 10 years on and off. So she was my only protector. So I did call my mother a lot, only because I was being attacked a lot by him and his close ones. And at the time, his mother didn't like when he would gift me with things or buy things for my other children. So she would ask him she would want expensive gifts, and she would want him to put in majority of the money for that expensive gift, and her husband and her other child just the less portion of it. And I would tell him, no, that we have bills and responsibilities and children over here, and that she had a husband that always gifted her with everything that she ever wanted, and that that was his job, and he was her son, and the things that he did for me should never upset her or make her feel like he should buy her things that cost a lot of money just for what he did for me, because I tried to just get her to understand that, just like she had a husband, that was my man, and he was supposed to do these things for me. And it should not have upset her to see him do these things for a person who is doing those things for him as well, because I gifted him as well. We gifted each other, just like her and her husband gifted each other and made each other happy. But she would come in and try to take my happiness from me, and also received that same happiness from her husband as well. And I did not like that. So I would stand up to that, and he would agree that what she was doing wasn't right, but he would ask me, could I just overlook it and ignore it, just to break the peace. So it just brought a lot of argument and a lot of confrontation to our relationship, because then I felt like he could not control his mother, and that he wasn't controlling his mother from stepping into our relationships. And every time we had a problem, oh gosh, she would just call me so many cuss words and bad words and just attack me and my character and just try to lower my self-esteem. And instead of just telling me, what she felt that I could have done better as a young woman and as a mother. But instead, she would just attack me by calling me awful names and try to just attack my self-esteem. So that was another thing that got in the way. And when me and her began to have an argument, after I would get fed up with it and stand up for myself, he actually wouldn't say anything. He would just ask me, could I ignore her? And he would kind of like ask her to chill out, but he would try not to say too much, because if he would ask her to respect me, she felt like he was taking up for me. And every time me and her would get into an argument, she would cuss him out anyway, stating that he's stupid, all these names, and feeling like he was taking my side, which he wasn't taking my side. He just rather not get in the middle of the drama, because he loved us both dearly, and he didn't want either one of us to feel like he was siding with one another, which, like I told him, I know that's your mother, and I'm sorry that I ever had to disrespect your mother, but your mother have to understand you as her child. I am not her child. I am a grown woman. I am a mother as well, and I would like to be respected as a mother as well, and I don't want her to call me nasty names or attack my character or belittle my self-esteem, because it's not right. And he understood that, so he would just be quiet majority of the time and just let it die down a little bit. But to move on, the only problem he had with me was me calling on my mother a lot to just come rescue me out of certain situations where I see it was leading into disasters. But to move on, I've also experienced a lot of bullying from his mother, where my daughter, she came out really dark-skinned from his father's side of the family. They all are really dark color, and his mother's side is a really light color. So our first child came out light, and our second child came out really dark, like his father's side of the family. And for years, she would say my daughter wasn't his, and that's not true. And I also, it was getting to me a lot, where I asked him, could we get a DNA test just so she can quit bullying me and quit being rude to my daughter and calling her names. And he said no, because he know that's his daughter, and he said his mother do not have control over him, and he already knew the truth, so he didn't have anything to prove to her, which ticked me off at the time, because I really wanted that test. But he told me, quit letting her get to me like that, and I did. I learned how to just let it, not allow it to get to me over the years. So to move past that, she would call my daughter just like she recently called my daughter a black little thing. And when she was one, she said she was going to be a whore just like me, and she would just keep being rude and saying rude things about my daughter, where my daughter was becoming to have low self-esteem and thinking that she was ugly because she didn't want to be around my daughter. And on top of it, she would treat her other grandchild better than my daughter and have her all the time, and she would want to only get my daughter randomly, and just make her feel like she was a black sheep. So my daughter carried that for years, where she felt insecure and felt like she was ugly because of her skin color, of her grandmother just making fun of, you know, her skin. And that really triggered me, and that made me kind of resent her for a lot of years, because I didn't realize how much control she just had over me with bullying. And it would just upset me for a lot of years, because she was ruining my children. She was also having my son feel like he was better than my other children, especially when I was struggling and being a convicted felon behind her son and his actions. So she would buy my son a lot of things and have him feel like he was better than my other children, so he could come home and brag of all the nice things he had at her place to make my other children feel less than. And all the way from years on up, that kind of made my family unhealthy and made them kind of have a sibling war against each other. And then on top of it, he was become a Tasmanian devil, where he was becoming so just hyper, and it's hard to maintain because of her rewarding him for things that he didn't deserve, for the poor choices he was making in school and even outside of school, just with not making the right choices. So she would gift him for bad behaviors, and that also brought unhealthiness to me and my son as well. And I had to break all of this by myself. So his mother would never quit bullying. On top of it, like, and I would also tell my daughter, you know, don't you dare take in anyone else's insecurities or negativity. How a person feel about you is how they feel about you, but that is not how you feel about yourself. You are a gorgeous, beautiful little girl, and you don't let nobody make you feel less, because you are beautiful. And I taught her this over the years, and now you know, with my Scorpio, she is Sagittarius, so she got extra spice on it, and now it don't bother. You know, everywhere we go, people would just say, oh, I love your skin color, you are a beautiful little girl. And now you just really can't tell her anything. And on top of it, I had to tell his mother, your husband always calls my daughter beautiful. He has never not called her beautiful. And on top of it, he also respects her and give her respect and make her feel welcomed, just like her father did to me when you know, me and her would not get along or get in an argument, and she just started, you know, disrespecting me. He would always come and sit on my mother's porch with me and her, and of course, you know, just mess around with my mother and make us laugh, you know, just try to, you know, try to apologize for her behaviors. And then on top of it, he will always, you know, get on his grandson and tell him to cut his hair and pull up his pants and marry me and treat me right. So I really respected the grandfather. So his mother would never quit bullying. On top of it, like I said, she would verbally attack me, and her sister even hit me in the head with a beer bottle and busted it on my head, where I had to lose it on her and protect myself. And she even tried to file charges on me, but the cops told her they would have did what I did to her too if she would have hit them with the bottle up top of their head. And then on top of it, her son also had a female bestie, as always. And I dealt with her for 10 years on and off, who was also a friend of his mother's as well. So she was bullying a lot too for 10 years on and off. She would step into our relationship, and not one time did she come up to me or even say, hey, you know, me and him is nothing more than friends. I want to respect you guys' relationship. If you want to hang out with us some days, you can. Or, you know, just be nice to speak one day and say hi. From day one, she never spoke to me, and he would be with her every single day, would come in at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there would be time I seen text messages that were unpleasant from him to her, and he would say that, take the rap and say that, you know, he wrote these things to her because he was drunk, and that he never remembered writing them until, you know, of course, he got caught. And then on top of it, the female best friend had also, over the years, it began to be worse when he got out of prison after doing these 5 years. So she started coming around again, and these acts were going so far as, and on top of it, she had put her child in my child's classroom, and went as far as calling to see if my child was up for school one day, which she was taking it too far. And so I had enough at this point, where she would walk past me as we were taking our children to class, and would laugh real loud or just do little things, where I had enough. And I told him I had enough, and at this point, you know, me and her were at each other's throats because I started to stand up for myself. So one day we were in a bar, and I happened to see her, and so we began to fight that night, where I snatched her out the bathroom, and somehow I blacked out. And when I came to focus, I was slamming her on the pool table, and as I had her on the table, she ended up getting a hold to one of the pool balls and hitting me 3 times in the head. And in that moment, I ended up breaking her leg as well. So things got so out of hand that they became very critical, and we both had to seek medical assistance. And that right there kind of brought him to, you know, bring boundaries into things, because he wasn't controlling his close ones. And the bullying that I was kept and the bullying and the attacks that I kept receiving over these 10 years, I had enough, and I began to stand up for myself. And when I did, it began to become a big fight, and one of the biggest battles of my life. There was an incident where I had with her other son, where his daughter was at my home, and I was gonna let her stay all night that night. She was at my home, and she was telling my older son that she had a boyfriend, and that her mother allowed her to date guys. And I told her, at her age, that was inappropriate to talk about, because at the time she was only around 7 years old. And I told her mother of her behavior, and the little girl got mad and said, and I asked her, could she remove herself from my room? And she got mad because I called her mother and told her mother about her behavior and what she had said. And the little girl got so mad that she said, well, I'm going to tell my parents that you hit me. And I told her I didn't care what she was going to tell her parents, because the whole time I was on the phone with her mother. So her mother stayed on the phone with me all the way until she came and picked her up. And that led to, of course, the grandmother the grandmother and her other son, who was the father of the little girl, to want to attack me. And then that's where my children's father told them she would never touch someone else's children, and that just isn't her. Like, she always have them, she loved them. And at the time, I was letting them come over and eat meals with me every night, because we both were kind of struggling. But because, you know, I had a little more, I offered to feed her and her children as well. And it wasn't a problem, because at the time she was my friend, and you know, these are my children's family. So it just didn't bother me. But what bothered me was the mother has stepped into their relationship as well, which drove them into an unhealthy relationship, just like it did me and her other son. And so the wars were beginning between the two of them, and she would put me as the middleman. So one day we went to pick up her children from him. He had came outside and started beating on my side of the window, where I'm afraid of my life, because I'm thinking the glass is going to break in my face. And the children are in the back seat, they're screaming, they're crying and kicking, and the whole time their mother is entertaining his behavior and sitting there looking in her phone as if nothing was happening, which caused me to panic, because I just can't quit thinking that this glass is going to shatter in my face. So I began to yell at her to drive off. And from that night, I never spoke to her again. But I did invite her daughter to come to my daughter's extravagant birthday party, but only if she attended with the grandmother. So the grandmother brought her, and I didn't tell her about the slumber party part. I just invited her to swim and for the regular party. And so the grandmother kind of beat it out of me to tell her that I was having a slumber party. And so I told her I wasn't comfortable with the little girl staying there without adult supervision after you know, what she had told her parents that was not true at all. And so that begins, like every party every year I have for my children, the grandmother ruined it. And she made a way to try to ruin this party as well and argue, but I got her out as fast as I could, and I just went on to enjoying the rest of the party with the rest of the girls. And I had also told her, why would you want your granddaughter around a person that says that she hit them? I would not dare around someone that said that that person had hit them, you know? And so the grandmother really couldn't argue much past that point. But these behaviors are not okay at all, especially in front of these children. It was weird to me, because when we first got together, he would tell me about behaviors that went on inside his home with his mother when he were younger, and other guys that, you know, reacted like him with these behaviors. So he would always tell me, my mom call you these names, but you're no different than her. The same thing you're going through with guys, she went through the same thing. And he would also tell me a little bit about his childhood. And after speaking with his grandfather and learning a truth about his mother, I then realize, now that I'm at a clear state of mind, that he was learning learned behavior from what went on when he was smaller inside the home. And on top of it, from speaking with her father, she keeps attacking my daughter as the black sheep, from unhealed wounds of her childhood that I later found out through her father, a very big secret about her, but that's her story to tell, and I pray for her closure and healing. But that made sense why she felt that way about my daughter. So a lot of these behaviors starts with the person who is bringing these negative behaviors, and the things that were brought up in their home that they carried as a generational curse. So we began to get into it really bad, and he had learned to control himself physically, where he would call me a whole bunch of disrespectful names, which would cause me to want to put my hands on him. So he was learning how to trigger me and reverse physically assaulting me to where I would want to put my hands on him. So I noticed what he was doing, and so we began to break up with the cheating and the disrespect after me and his female bestie had a fight, and dealing with the drama and wars of his mother as well. So anyways, to move forward, we end up breaking up, but it was hard to keep him away from the home. Although he was moving on with other women, he would come over at night and still stalk my home. And it was getting so bad where I had to call the cops. But the cops really couldn't do anything because he told them he had mail at my place and was saying this was his home, and that was not true. It was a family home, my family home, and that home was nothing of his. It was everything of me and my family's. So that really ticked me off as well. And so these acts were becoming so aggressive that me and him had a small tussle in a home one day. And at this time, the children are older. So my oldest child picked up a frying pan and went charging at him along with the other children. And I had to break them back like, no. And he kind of got mad at my oldest child. He told him, you stay in a child's place and you don't jump in adults' business. And I began to tell him, that's not true. If he don't stand up for his mother as a man, what do he stand up for as a man? And that brought him to really sit there and reflect on that, where I didn't have to say another word. He just ended up walking out the door. And at this point, I didn't have to teach my sons anything, because they just became warriors. And I pray to God and thank God every day that he put 4 strong men in my life. And from that day, I got a protection order for 5 years. And within those protection orders, he still was violating them, where he would try to climb through my bedroom window while I will be asleep, and I would have to just wake up and catch him and hurry up and shut the window and call the cops. And he would beat on the door at night, or he would, like I said, stay in my backyard and just stalk me, to where I was just becoming irritated and irritable, and just standing in a room all night, just staying up without getting any sleep, because I thought that he would sneak in while I was asleep, and it was making me paranoid, and it was kind of like bringing a lot of depression onto me, because at this time I had also went to his probation officer and told her he was burning wheels in front of my home, telling me that he was going to put me in a cemetery, and that I was scared for my life, on top of him trying to break into my home. And I asked her not to tell him of the things that I told her, because I was very fearful of him at this time, especially with him being 350 pounds, and I'm as small as Belle, 120 pounds. So, I was really afraid of him from his past behaviors of abuse. And his probation officer was not at all helpful. She would just tell him, if you don't leave that girl alone, I'm going to violate you and put you in jail. But she never did. And one time I called the cops and I made a report of him violating his protection order. And so happened a day later, there was a bar invasion on live Facebook, where I'm watching that same officer that came to my home a day before stand right next to him in the bar on that live of them being in that bar invasion. So I knew right there I was not protected by the police as well, especially after being framed by them. So I knew I couldn't trust them at all. Nights I would keep my light on in my room so he could think that I was home, and I would have to sneak out my living room window and just go out and have fun with my friends that way, and sneak back in at night through that same window, so he wouldn't know that I had left that night, because I try to go places where I knew he wouldn't be. So just to have fun. But then doing that and staying up all night and having to work the next day, all that was getting to me, where I was falling into depression. And so I'm just in his room all day and looking at the white walls, and I'm going crazy. And I just tell one of my close ones, I can't live like this. I would rather end myself than to live like this. And, she was kind of concerned, where she went to go get my mother, and they thought, I was leading to suicide. And I wasn't in a suicidal state, but I was just making a gesture that I could not live like this. And so these behaviors were getting worse and worse, to where one of my family members had a female cop that was their friend, and this cop would tell me to put knives and a hammer under my bed and under my pillow, and if he tried to open up the window, to just defend myself as much as I can. And then the more I called our local cops, they were telling me that I can use self-defense, especially if he come in the home. And I told them I don't want to hurt anybody, but I don't want anybody to hurt me either. And the way that he was going, it was leading there, especially after one night that was the biggest wake-up call of my life. And that was when me and one of my family members had went out and we partied, and that day he asked to get the children, and I told him he could get the children for the weekend. So me and my cousin had went out that night, and we partied and we had fun. So we are parked in front of my home for her to drop me off, and my other children were gone as well. So as we are talking the whole time, I'm looking at my big dark house, and I don't feel right. My intuition is kicking like crazy. I'm getting red alerts. So I tell her I'm uncomfortable. I would rather go stay at my sister's that night. So I go over to my sister's house with her and my other children and stay the night there. And when I went home in the morning, my whole home was destroyed. I mean, he had grabbed the outside trash bins and threw them all in my home. He just threw things everywhere and trashed the place. And that gave me a big reality check, where it hit me the most it ever hit me. Had I went in the house that night and I had been drinking, I was sleepy, I was tired. Had I went in there, not even the neighbors would have heard anything. And I knew there that I could not trust him. That I could not trust him at all, and that I was leading myself more and more into destruction the more I allow him to own me and have this control over me. I then knew that when he made gestures such as "I love you more than I love myself," or "You too beautiful to be with me," and him putting my name on him about 4 or 5 times, I knew right then that I had became his property, and I had to stand up for myself. So within the next few days after that, within that week, so that was that Saturday. So when I went and confirmed when I went home that Sunday, I couldn't believe what he did. And by Monday, it's weird. A psychic had ended up reaching out to me by Gmail, and she gave me a path number 7, which 7 has also been always my lucky number because it's always been 7 of us. Anyway, she gave me this path number 7 and told me if I jump out on faith and take a journey, it would be the best thing that I could do for myself. And at that point, I said, what more can I lose, you know? So within a day of firm thinking, I said, I'm going to skip states. And within that, that very next day, I ended up getting in touch with my stepdad's, one of his uncles, and asking him, can me and the children go down there with him, where he agreed. And by that Friday, me and the children had skipped state. And I didn't tell anybody but about 5 people, and we kept it a secret all the way till that Friday, and then I skipped state. And then on top of it, he didn't know. He thought we were just visiting, and then he realized that we just never came back. So that right there made him really pay attention to his actions, where he began to become confused because he thought his actions were just normal, and he really thought that nothing was wrong with them because he really had a problem with admitting when he was wrong. And nobody ever taught him how to admit when he was wrong, and he would kind of manipulate the story a lot of the times to a lot of people to make it seem like I was the bad guy or I was tripping. So he would tell part of the story, but he wouldn't tell the whole thing, especially his faults. So this time, this made him pay attention to his actions, and I told him, if you don't learn discipline, we will definitely not come back, and you will miss out on life. And that's just how that will be until you learn how to respect me. And so from that point, he learned how to respect me, and he never stalked me again. And although I stayed in Tennessee for a whole year, I had left one of my close ones, my whole home, and I started over. I felt bad keeping the children away from him because that was something I never wanted. So I told him if he bring another woman with him, and I knew the woman that he was dealing with, so I told him if he brought his woman with him, that he could get the children for a few weeks on Christmas break, and then my oldest son's father would bring them back with my brother. And that was an agreement, and everything worked out perfect there. So he did come to Tennessee to pick the children up and to take them back. And of course, I met him away from my home, so he wouldn't know where I lived. So when the detectives told me I could move back home because he had been arrested on another drug charge, you know, I was excited, and the children were excited because I really was missing my close ones. They were missing me. The children were missing their friends. We were like so far away from each other, about 6.5 hours. And I just needed my mother's support as well, especially helping me with the children, because I just never liked daycare, so I never really put them in daycare or had other people look after them other than my mother. So I wanted to be back closer because of course they was getting a little wild too. And on top of it, I was becoming uncomfortable around my stepdad's uncle because he had did something inappropriate to me. One day, just me and him were in my apartment, and although he apologized, that night had me very uncomfortable, and I really didn't like that at all. So I was just ready to go back home. Well, just like the first time, me leaping from where I'm from to a whole nother state and leaving everything behind, and I had just bought my children new beds and made up their rooms and decorated them before we jumped out on faith and moved to Tennessee. So this time I had everything I just bought again. I had to give it away again, which at the time, my neighbor, she was struggling just like me, single mother just like me, and we both worked third shift. She worked in a restaurant and I worked at Walmart. So the nights that I would be off, I would keep the baby for her. And just every morning when I get off of work, since I had cable, her son, her 3-year-old, he would walk next door to my apartment and I already have him milk and cereal on a table where he'll pour the milk inside the bowl and just watch cartoons until he got tired and he would walk just back next door to go home, which I love those moments. He was a very sweet child, and you know, all her children were very sweet, just sweet little guy. Anyways, to move on, so she could use the things, so I left the whole apartment to her, beds and all. I gave her the washer and dryer and just told her, you know, and gave her inspiration and just wished her well through life. And then I went back home with no home to go to. And so I had to work extra hard again to give me another place and to start over. At this time, life was kicking the crap out of me. And that's when the children's father had just gotten out of jail for doing a year. And at the time, I was struggling again like I was the first time and about to fall on my face. So he came home right in time because at the time I was only a waitress at Frisch's and I really wasn't getting any hours because they had their regular waitress, and so it was hard for me to get hours. So he would help me out, and at the time I was getting harassed badly by the police. They were pulling me over left and right from the car that I drove. And so when he came home, he was nice enough to get my car spray painted for me and to get the rims off that was causing me to get pulled over all the time. And then on top of it, he would pick me up from work while my car was getting painted in the shop. He would take me to work and pick me up, and he know I love the Dollar Tree, so he would take me to the Dollar Tree after work and then take me back home while a few hours him and the children would be in the front just in his truck while he hook up beats or whatever they were out there doing, spending time. And then also, you know, he been very nice. Something that he always been to me was nice. Like, he just never allowed himself to see me fall or to see me down, or he always just wanted to see me up, no matter how bad his temper was. On good notes, even through tempers, he just would always still want to see me taken care of because I was his children's mother. So if I was struggling with the bill or I needed a ride or whatever the case may be, he made sure I was provided for because he knows how much I work hard to provide for them. And none of their fathers were ever really around. They always been in and out. So for 2 generations, I've been taking care of children by myself. So he just was the most considerate one, because even the ones that were out at the time, they wouldn't give me a dime, and they didn't mind watching me struggle either. And they would only want to help if, I put my pride aside, and I'm like, I would never do that. We have children together. You should want to do the right thing, but to move on, it was what it was. He was the only one that would just always make sure I was okay. Even while he was incarcerated, he would make a way to make sure that the children had things. So I did appreciate that a lot. But then I started noticing things where, as we were getting along, and just being mutual with one another, and he learned how to control himself a lot. He was out long enough to make it to the father-daughter dance, and that day I told him, go get her some flowers, and he like, for what? I'm just taking her to a dance. And I was like, you taking her on her first date, you better treat her how you would treat your first date. And oh God, he came with so many balloons, flowers, corsage. He did the whole work, and they had a ball at the father and daughter's dance. So that was a nice experience to see. But to move on, so he was really becoming disciplined. And then one night, me and my girls, we were just in a parking lot of a bar, just parking lot pimping, and we noticed him and the girl he was dealing with at the time. And he was very drunk that night, and we were just in a car in a parking lot. It's pretty dark with the lights off, watching the people go in and out. And we end up seeing him that night pretty drunk with a girl that he was dating. And we watched him get so upset that he pushed her to the ground, and see everything that was going on from the car. And as bad as I wanted to go out there and help her, I had to force myself not to and just sit there. And of course, people broke it up and she was okay, but I didn't like that. I called him the next day and I told him that I seen what he did to that girl, and that he pushed her on the ground, and that he should, at this point, just stop hitting women and just learn how to control himself. And, he, of course, just couldn't admit to his behavior. He then said, well, she did this. And at this point, I seen that girl on the side of the building, and I just seen him walk around and push her because she were talking to other guys. And that was not okay, because again, if he's allowed to have friends, so should she. Say this to say, we have to quit allowing guys to have that much power and control over us. We have a right to choose our friends. They have a right to choose their friends. Your significant other is uncomfortable with you being around a person maybe you can consider, but to not be able to speak to another gender is ridiculous. People known each other for years, and people have friends that's different genders. That don't mean that that person have to quit being friends with someone because they're in a relationship. Long as they keep it respectful and don't give anyone a reason to believe that something is suspicious or whatever the case may be, but then we all are entitled to have friends. So then I did have one incident where one day he knocked on my door in the middle of the night, and he had been drinking, and I told him, no, you're not going to come in here, and you should go home. And he said, okay, and I'm sorry for ever coming over here. And I told him it was okay, and he left. But then, and after he went to jail and he called me, he ended up later admitting that there were times he would sleep in front of my home and just wanted to knock on that door. And that was letting me know that his stalking behaviors were just about to rise again. So God just did things in the order that they were supposed to. because like I said, he helped me out a lot. And when he fixed my car, that was the best thing I was grateful for. And I thank him very much, because he came home right in time to support me while I supported the children. And that's just what it's all about in co-parenting. You know, some people just realize they just can't be together. Some people outgrow each other. Some people change because you should always change. And some people just stay the same because that's their comfortability. And, you know, things just fold and unfold for reasons that we don't see at the time, but then we then learn to see. And the more I stood up for myself, I learned to see him become more disciplined and to respect me more and to work on himself a little bit more. And you know, it all starts with a start. God used my body for a lot of things, and that was for me to tell my story today. And had he not used me, I would not have a story to tell today. And first, he made me tough, built tough in my body, and I'm happy I was able to lose my mind so I could find my soul, because had I not, I would not be at peace with the clear mind, body, and spirit. So I'm a refreshed person, and I made it out of a big old war. So because I fought that war and never gave up and learned how to stand up for myself and follow my dreams and allow myself to make a lot of mistakes that I then learned from. And it didn't make me weaker, it only made me stronger, strong enough to tell my story today. And it takes a lot in a person. So I hope you guys were inspired. Please subscribe. Everyone, my past life is my past life. It does not define who I am now. It does not define who you are now. Even those, you know, that wasn't so nice to me in my past life, guess what? You are probably a whole different person now. I have no grudge against you. I love everyone. So I hope you guys were inspired. Please subscribe, hit that notification, make sure you like and comment to tell me what you think. Thank you.